Okay, this is yet another new series that we're going to call Threading. I've done videos on it before, but in the context narrowly of Isaiah 53, because I was going to make that the poster boy for threading. But there is a much broader category which any scholar knows, but the ignorant people don't know. And that is the threading of Old Testament into New Testament. We all know that the Old Testament is quoted in the New Testament. That's, very common knowledge. And any respectable Bible is going to have a concordance or, some kind of appendix that will tell you, when you see a given verse, like the KJV Study Bible, it'll say it's, a verse in the New Testament is referring to such and such a verse in the Old Testament. The question is, how do you know that? And that's what we're going to go through. This video series is actually tied to 3 other series that I'm doing. Well, one of them I just finished, the KJV only blasphemy videos. It ties to that series because there is a gigantic lie told by the most ignorant among the KJV only that claims that the LXX is not quoted in the New Testament. You have to be completely deaf and dumb to say that. And anybody who tells you he can read the Greek and claims that the New Testament is not quoting directly from the LXX, most of the time in fact, is a liar or is completely incompetent. Don't ever listen to such a person again. And I'm going to prove why in this most important verse, but there are, dozens of verses, and I'm going to go through dozens of verses. That's the first series that this ties to. The second series that this ties to is the Royal Family of God series, because in particular this verse is the basis for it. And we're going to go through why that's true, within this video. Or, might end up being a pair of videos if I go over time. The third series that this threading ties to is to the Mark series, because Mark uses threading not only from the Old Testament, but from Matthew and Luke's Gospel in order to create his own. So for you to be able to spot how that works, I need to take you through the more obvious passages that you can measure and see yourself without respect to a given issue. So this is going to be generic. I'm going to take generic NT passages, mostly quotes by the Lord, but also by the other writers in the New Testament, and show how they tie to the LXX. Okay, not all of the quotes of the Old Testament are based on the LXX. Okay, but most of them are. And we're going to see why they target the LXX with their quotes right now. Okay, you see in front of you in the bottom window the famous first commandment. Okay, I'm highlighting the English right now. Okay, and you'll notice, let me keep this, yeah, alright. And you'll notice here that the last word, might, is not the same here in English. That's all you know in the English. It's a lot more sophisticated in the Greek, as you're going to find out. Okay? The word mind here is an actual change. Here's the word for mind in the Greek, and here is the word for might, which really means power, okay, in the Greek of the Old Testament. Alright? So even in English, you can see that it's different here versus here. This is a very sophisticated rhetorical style which we all use, okay, even in our modern days, to take a well-known quote and change it slightly, either for humor or to make a point or to add information. Like if you were reading something I wrote and I wrote the word Windows, but I spelled it W-I-N-D-O-Z-E, I'm making a point about how slow Windows is by spelling it that way. Okay, I'm changing the spelling of the last 4 letters and keeping the sound. Okay, that's got a certain humor and wit about it. The Bible is doing that kind of thing, but it's, of course, much more sophisticated. And we're going to see that here. But in English, at least you can see, look, here's the real first commandment in the Old Testament. Okay? And here it is in the New Testament, quoted by the Lord himself. Now, quotes, when they're deliberately not the same, are designed to teach something by means of the changes. And that is a very sophisticated legal technique also. All right? You're taking something well known and you're deliberately changing it. It would be like wearing a Hitler mustache and a Hitler haircut and putting it on Obama. Okay, there's a sort of cartoon that's floating around in emails where they basically change Obama's face to have Hitler's haircut and his mustache. That's changing part of what he looks like into characteristics that belong to Hitler, making a point. It's the same thing here. But it also works in legal contracts to make distinctions. Okay, here the distinction is between mind in the top part of the window and might, which is the Old Testament. But in the Greek there are more distinctions than that. So that's what we're going to go through. Okay, first of all, the quote in the New Testament is in blue there, and the Old Testament counterpart is here. That's the whole quote. Now take a look at it for a minute. It doesn't matter that you can't read Greek. I'll go through the words, but it doesn't matter that you can't read it. Just look at the letters. Okay? The letters are all the same. Well, yeah. Except for certain differences, and I'm going to show you what they are. Okay? You just take a minute and look at that. Alright? Pause the video if you need more time. I'm going to go on now. Okay. The first big difference is this thing here, and I'm going to have to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to pull up the lexicon so you can see this, so you won't think that it's brain out inventing this stuff. Everything I say comes from somewhere. Okay? And most of it comes from Bible works. Alright. Here's, oops, I gotta turn it back on. Alright, this is a difference here in the Old Testament versus here in the New Testament. Okay, those are prepositions. This is ek, means out from, away from. It is the Greek equivalent to the Hebrew preposition min. And it's birthing. It's always talking about a separation. Okay? Okay, there you go. And let me pull it down the lexicon a little more. There's no difference in the English translation, so you can't see this in English, and it's very important. The whole New Testament's based on this little prepositional change. Okay, that's the preposition ek, highlighted in blue in Deuteronomy 6:5. And you can look at the bottom, Thayer's lexicon. The rest, you know, it's got from, out from, away from. Okay, it's separative. It's considered a separative preposition. You can look that up in seminary. What's a separative preposition? By contrast, this little baby here, N, is an inclusive. Okay? It's not all of its meanings. It often means by means of. And you have to know that in Greek they didn't use prepositions. They just used case endings. So the prepositions came along, I'm not really sure when. It was sometime after Pericles, because it's a prominent feature of Koine. And I don't know when between the age of Pericles and Koine it actually started becoming more common to use the prepositions, but you can look that up in Perseus. Okay, or talk to a Greek scholar. Okay, the point is that in is the opposite of out. Ek in the bottom window is outside, out from, okay, beyond. Just like Hebrew preposition min essentially means beyond, okay. It does have other meanings. It can, all of the prepositions can have a causal meaning. But ek is out from, basic idea, okay, out from the source of. It's saying that wherever you were, you might have come from a given place, but you aren't there now. Okay, that's ek. Alright, and by contrast means in or by means of. In, on, with, among, by means of. Okay? And that's the preposition highlighted in blue up here. En.